Bungee jumping is supposed to be the ultimate rush, a leap into the unknown with nothing but a cord holding you back. But sometimes that cord fails, and the jump turns into something far darker. Behind the thrill are stories of lives cut short in disturbing ways. In this video, we'll uncover 5 of the most unsettling bungee jumping deaths ever recorded. Real people who took the plunge, only for it to end in tragedy. It was July 18, 2021, in Amaga, Colombia. That day, 25-year-old lawyer Yesenia Morales traveled with her boyfriend to the Amaga Viaduct, a spot known for extreme sports. They were there to try bungee jumping for the first time. The event was run by a company called Sky Bungee Jumping. More than 100 people had signed up that day, making it a packed session. Yesenia and her boyfriend were near the end of the line, listed as the 90th jumpers. What was supposed to be a thrilling experience quickly turned into one of the most tragic accidents in Colombia's recent history. When their turn came, the staff prepared both of them. Yesenia was fitted with a harness but was not yet connected to the bungee cord. Her boyfriend, ahead of her, was properly secured. In this activity, the cord is only attached at the very last step, once the jumper is on the platform. The couple waited on the viaduct. Then came the signal for Yesenia's boyfriend. But Yesenia thought it was for her. Without hesitation, she jumped. There was no cord attached. She fell more than 150 feet into the valley below. Witnesses froze in horror. Some caught the moment on video, which soon spread on TikTok and other platforms. Medical reports later suggested Yesenia may have realized the mistake during her fall. Experts believe her heart stopped before she even hit the ground. Her boyfriend, in shock, scrambled down the slope to reach her. He injured himself on the way but kept going. Once he found her, he used his first aid training to try CPR. Witnesses said he worked desperately, refusing to give up. But nothing could be done. Firefighters from Amaga soon arrived. They confirmed she passed away at the scene. Her boyfriend was treated for injuries and later for emotional trauma. In the days after, hospitals released their findings. They confirmed Yesenia's heart had likely stopped mid-fall, caused by fear and shock. The story spread quickly across Colombia and beyond. But what followed was confusion. Local officials, including Fredonia's mayor Gustavo Guzman, explained it simply. She misunderstood the signal. Her boyfriend was the one secured and ready, while she only had on the harness. But the company, Sky Bungee Jumping, denied this. They claimed there was no confusion and insisted their protocol required one jumper to fully complete their activity before another was prepared. They argued that viral videos were being misinterpreted and that the incident had nothing to do with a mistaken signal. This contradiction left many wondering what really happened. Meanwhile, Yesenia's family spoke about who she was. Her brother, Andres Morales, described her as kind, spontaneous, and driven. She loved reading, dancing, and helping others. Her sudden death broke their family apart. She was laid to rest in Medellin after a ceremony in her neighborhood. Authorities then launched an investigation. Reports suggested that 2 different companies had been running jumps at the site without full authorization. This raised questions about oversight in Colombia's adventure tourism industry. Were operators licensed and properly trained? Were safety standards being followed? Sky Bungee Jumping said they cooperated and shared their records. But for many, the damage was already done. Adventure sports like bungee jumping depend on flawless communication and precise safety measures. In Yesenia's case, one misstep, whether a misunderstood signal or failed procedure, was enough to end a life. What makes her story even more chilling is the possibility that she realized the mistake as she fell and that her body gave out before she reached the ground. The death of Yesenia Morales remains one of Colombia's most infamous accidents. Her family remembers her for her joy and spirit, but investigators continue to focus on one fact. A single signal, misunderstood or mishandled, led to a jump that should never have happened. It was October 2021 in Karaganda, Kazakhstan. On the rooftop of the Constellation Hotel, a crowd gathered for an extreme sport known as rope free flying. Among them was 33-year-old Yevgenia Leontieva, a mother of 3. She had tried the activity before, but this time she looked uneasy. Her husband, Alexander Tkachenko, stood nearby to support her. He could tell she was hesitant. Rope-free flying is different from bungee jumping. There's no bounce. A jumper leaps from a height depending on nylon ropes that slow the fall before swinging them midair. If set up correctly, it feels like flying. If not, the risks are serious. That morning, Yevgenia and a friend posted online, "Live it up and we're going to fly." Her friend jumped first. The system worked and she swung safely in the air. Relief spread through the crowd. Then it was Yevgenia's turn. Witnesses said she froze at the edge, looking terrified. Her friend, Anton Shevelev, later told the court he had begged the instructor to remove her harness, saying she wanted to leave. The instructor, 33-year-old Alexander Muznikas, ignored this. Instead, he pushed her to go forward, reminding her she had done it before. Those words increased the pressure. Her husband tried to comfort her, shouting that he loved her. Moments later, Yevgenia stepped off the rooftop. Video footage captured everything. At first, it seemed routine, but instead of tightening, the rope failed. She plunged about 100 feet, hitting the ground and slamming into an iron fence. Investigators found that a crossline meant to anchor the system to a tree was never secured. In the video, the man holding the rope was dragged to the ground, proving the system hadn't been fastened. Chaos followed. Witnesses screamed. Her husband rushed to her side. Later, he said that his wife lost her life before his eyes, that he had been in shock, and that it was clearly the staff's fault. They had not checked the rope and had told her to jump. When Alexander reached her, she was still breathing. Emergency services rushed her to the hospital. Doctors reported a severe skull fracture, brain trauma, and multiple fractures on the right side of her body. They performed surgery to remove a hematoma, but she passed away during the operation. Yevgenia left behind 3 boys, ages 8, 11, and 12. 2 were her children, and 1 was the son of a deceased relative. Tkachenko was now left to raise them alone. Her friend Shevelev testified that he had tried to stop the jump, but was ignored. Other witnesses added that the jump had been approved before the system was even secured to the tree. Rope free-flying began in the 1990s in the United States. Unlike bungee jumping, it requires precise rigging of bolts, pulleys, and anchors. If done correctly, the jumper is slowed before reaching the ground. But there is no margin for error. In Yevgenia's case, the staff failed to coordinate. The system wasn't complete, the anchor wasn't secure. A criminal case followed. Instructor Muznikas was charged with providing unsafe services that led to her death. On Kazakh TV, he defended himself, saying he never intended harm and wasn't the one who designed the faulty system. Still, evidence showed he pressured her to jump and failed to check the rope. The court sentenced him to 4 years in a medium-security prison. The judge acknowledged that he rushed her to the hospital, but it did not lessen his responsibility. The tragedy left Alexander Tkachenko to care for 3 children while carrying the memory of watching his wife fall. The disturbing footage spread online, shocking people worldwide. For Yevgenia, a sport that should have felt like flying turned into a disaster when the system meant to protect her failed completely. It was December 2016 in Sao Paulo State, Brazil. Fabio Ezequiel de Moraes, a 36-year-old man from Valinhos, stood on a railway bridge ready for a jump he thought would be unforgettable. Standing nearby were his wife, his brother, and his 6-year-old son. They were there to watch him, not realizing that in only minutes their excitement would turn into something irreversible. Fabio had even thought about making the leap with his son. Reports later confirmed he had considered a tandem jump, where both would be secured to the same cord. But at the last moment, he chose to go alone. That choice, tragic as it was, ended up saving his child. Everything seemed prepared. Fabio had hired a professional team to supply the bungee gear. They were responsible for securing the harness and making sure the cord length matched his weight in the drop. To the family, it appeared safe. The harness was strapped in, the rope attached, and Fabio, filled with excitement, walked to the edge. Video later showed him calm, even shouting with joy, before diving forward. At first, it looked like a perfect bungee jump, the rush of air, the free fall, and then the expected rebound. His family waited to see him bounce back up, but the cord was too long. Instead of stopping short of the valley floor, Fabio kept falling. Witnesses said he stretched out his arms as if bracing himself, but there was no rebound. He hit the ground with devastating force. His wife, brother, and young son saw everything. What was supposed to be thrilling turned into shock and grief. Emergency responders rushed him to a hospital in Myrinke, but his injuries were too severe. Doctors could not save him, and he passed away soon after. Police immediately seized the equipment and launched an investigation into possible negligence. In extreme sports like this, precision is not optional, it is everything. The cord length must be exact, and the jumper's weight must be fully factored in. In Fabio's case, investigators determined the setup was miscalculated, and that error cost him his life. Local news pointed out how close his son came to being part of the jump. If Fabio had gone through with the tandem leap, both would have been attached to the same faulty cord. His last-minute choice to jump alone spared the boy. This incident also drew attention because it was not the only one of its kind. Just 3 months earlier, in September 2016, A 29-year-old woman in South Korea had suffered a serious accident during a bungee jump when her cord snapped mid-air. She plunged about 140 feet into the water, surviving but with severe injuries. Authorities there charged the operator with negligence after finding loose screws on the hook meant to secure her rope. That case raised concerns about safety standards in the industry, concerns that now echo in Brazil after Fabio's death. The video of Fabio's jump cut out before the impact, but for those who were there, the memory will never fade. What began as excitement ended with a devastating loss, all due to a preventable mistake. The investigation pressed on, with authorities questioning the team and examining their equipment. But for Fabio's family, his wife, brother, and especially his son, the damage was permanent. On that day, a man who had wanted only adventure lost his life because of one miscalculated detail. His story left behind grief, questions, and a haunting reminder of how thin the line can be between thrill and tragedy. It was July 21, 2015, in southern Spain. 23-year-old Cleo de Abreu from London was on holiday with her aunt near the mountain village of Langeron. She had always been adventurous, and that day she decided to go bungee jumping. At about 2:45 p.m., she prepared for her second jump from a steel bridge that rose high above the river Tablate. But instead of a safe thrill, her jump ended in tragedy when she struck the old stone bridge below. Cleo had just returned to London after years in Cape Town, South Africa, to study fashion. Friends and family described her as kind, lively, and determined. She had recently visited Morocco before traveling to Spain to see her Aunt Gabriela and cousins. The trip was meant to be a happy visit, but her aunt was standing nearby when the accident unfolded. The jump site was popular. The steel bridge, built about 20 years earlier, stood more than 260 feet above the ravine. Below it was the centuries-old Roman bridge. Companies marketed the location as a unique thrill, charging about €35 for a drop of around 65 feet before swinging beneath the steel bridge. To most, it looked safe. For Cleo, it was supposed to be a memory of excitement. As she leapt, the rope extended too far. Instead of stopping short, it let her fall directly into the stone bridge. Witnesses saw her hit the structure and hang motionless from the cord. Her aunt, fellow jumpers, and passers-by were powerless. Rescue teams arrived about 25 minutes later, but she had already passed from the impact. News spread quickly and Spanish authorities launched an investigation. Early reports suggested the rope had been miscalculated. It had not broken. It was simply too long. A judge in Orgiva began overseeing the case, calling for technical reviews and witness statements. Police confirmed the company running the jump would be investigated. Concerns about the firm soon surfaced. Other adventure operators in Andalusia claimed they had warned officials about the company for years. One instructor said a friend had even contacted the Guardia Civil, predicting that an accident was inevitable. Nothing was done. Reports also suggested the company sometimes mixed bungee jumping with alcohol, offering beer as part of the package. Other workers recalled seeing empty cans left behind on the bridge after events, something they found reckless. On the day of the tragedy, the guide supervising Cleo's jump had only been on the job for 2 months. This raised questions about whether inexperienced staff had been trusted with dangerous tasks. Cleo's father, Bernard Atwell, spoke out soon after. The family was in shock, struggling to accept how a fun outing had turned into devastation. He described her as adventurous, genuine, and ambitious, someone just beginning to shape her future. He said nothing could bring her back, but he hoped her death would stop others from suffering the same fate. Authorities pressed on with their inquiry, examining the rope's length, safety procedures, and the company's training standards. Experts, police, and the judge worked to determine if neglect had played a role. Cleo had much ahead of her. Raised in South Africa, she had only recently returned to London to study fashion and design. Her family said she was one of the best things that had ever happened to them. A holiday meant for joy had ended in unbearable loss. The Foreign Office in the UK confirmed her death and assisted her family. Meanwhile, investigators focused on the company's practices. Witnesses and officials questioned whether poor training and unsafe decisions had cost a young woman her life. For her family, the grief was deep. What should have been an adventure ended in a preventable tragedy. It was August 2015 in Cantabria, northern Spain. A group of young travelers gathered at the Cabazon de la Sal Bridge, ready for something extreme, bungee jumping. Among them was 17-year-old Vera Moll from the Netherlands. She was adventurous and eager to try the experience. But what was supposed to be a thrilling memory ended as one of the most tragic and preventable accidents in adventure tourism. Vera booked the jump through FlowTrack, a company that organized outdoor trips across Spain. The activity was supposed to be led by trained staff who would ensure safety. Bungee jumping carries risk, but with proper supervision, serious accidents are very rare. On this day, however, several mistakes lined up, and they would cost Vera her life. The bridge chosen was not legal for bungee jumping under Spanish law. Regulations specifically banned the activity on road bridges like this one. Still, the company used it. From the beginning, the event was already against safety rules. That morning, the group waited while the instructor prepared each jumper. Normally, the process requires 2 steps. The participant is strapped into a harness, and that harness is then secured to the bridge with a rope. Both must be complete before jumping. In Vera's case, the rope was clipped to her harness, but not yet attached to the bridge. She was connected to nothing. The instructor that day was Spanish and worked for FlowTrack, but his English was very poor, something later described in court as extremely weak. His role was to guide young foreign participants, including Vera, but his limited English became the central cause of what happened. When Vera stood at the edge, the instructor called out, "No jump." What he meant was not yet, wait, but with his accent and poor pronunciation, it sounded like now jump. Believing she had been given the signal, Vera leapt forward. The rope was not secured. Witnesses watched in horror as she fell from the bridge. Seconds later, she collided with the structure below. News spread quickly. What looked like a freak accident was later shown to be caused by negligence. Investigators found multiple failures. First, the wording "no jump" was not standard. Official protocols required "don't jump," which was clearer. Second, the instructor had not checked Vera's identification. She was 17, but the minimum age was 18. Third, no parental consent was requested, which should have been required for minors. And finally, the bridge itself was never authorized for the activity. The case went to court in Cantabria. Judges ruled that the instructor's poor English directly led to Vera mishearing the order. They also blamed the companies involved, FlowTrack and another operator, Aqua 21 of Ventura, for using an illegal site and hiring unqualified staff. In the end, 2 employees, including the instructor, were convicted of negligence that caused her death and sentenced to prison terms of 1 to 4 years. During the trial, FlowTrack's representative admitted that Vera jumped with the rope tied to her, but not fixed to the bridge. He said it was caused by a misunderstanding, but the court stated it was fully preventable. The setup itself was also unsafe. Witnesses said participants waited at the very edge of the bridge with no secure platform. Safety rules that should have been strict were instead ignored. For Vera's family, the findings confirmed what they already knew. Their daughter had been failed by those responsible for her safety. It wasn't one mistake, it was several. Poor wording, no ID check, no parental consent, an illegal site, and an incomplete setup. In 2017, almost 2 years later, the court officially ruled that Vera died because of a misunderstanding caused by poor English and negligence. Her story shows how extreme sports can turn tragic when clear rules and safety measures are not followed. A single word, a missing check, or an unsecured rope can mean the difference between life and death.